Hello, everybody, and welcome to this special Comestri event to celebrate International Women's Day, a global day celebrating the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women. The 2021 theme is Choose the Challenge. And today I have two special women with me to help talk about various aspects of women achievement in the industry of e-commerce. I'd like to introduce you to two trailblazing women in the e-commerce industry in Australia, Amanda Green and Caroline Swarbrick. Welcome, my dear friends.
Thanks, Frank. Lovely to be here.
Thank you. First of all, Amanda, you've had a very interesting career, a number of positions in digital and e-commerce, both domestic and global companies. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are today?
Well, actually, I started my career as an accountant. So I was studying full-time and I was working part-time in order to get through university as an accountant, and moved overseas to work at Electrolux in Sweden, of all things, as a financial controller in my early 20s. But my background was that I always had an interest in sort of technology, and e-commerce in Europe when I got there was much further advanced in Australia. We were still on dial-up modems, for goodness sake, and I came to Sweden and we had these security camp things and we could get into our bank accounts and everything. My mind was sort of just blown. So from that, I was just like, this is kind of the future of where I want to be. And it was a great combination of my interest in technology, but also my accounting and business kind of background. So I went back to university in Ireland and did a master's in e-commerce and moved into e-commerce from there. I was really lucky to be able to get a job setting up e-commerce for Nike in Europe. So that was like a big bang of a start for e-com for me. And then when I moved back to Australia after having a child, did a few other jobs, but again, ended up at Nike, developing their e-commerce in Australia. So that was great. Then moved to L'Oreal, really to grow their online business, started in their luxury division, but then moved to as an e-commerce director across the entire business. So 40 or so brands, and that was massive. But now I find myself in a total change of kind of industry, still e-commerce, absolutely, still digital. I'm not going to change that, but I've moved to the building industry in a B2B role. And that's bringing some really different opportunities and challenges, and I'm really loving it. It's just a change of pace, but still in the same thing that I'm really passionate about and love.
Wow, quite an extensive experience from number crunching to tech to consumer mindset and behaviour. And Caroline, when I look at your history, again, various roles in marketing, sales, e-commerce, both for domestic Australian brands and retailers and international. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. So I didn't start off as an accountant. I actually started off in design. So my background, and I think when I started reminiscing on my journey to where I am today, it was really interesting because I always thought that gender hadn't really played a standout role in my journey. But as I went way back, I realized that I'm one of three girls, so two sisters, went to an all-girls high school, and then went and studied fashion design, which was 99% female. So far up until this point, I really hadn't experienced anything that felt like women might be in the minority at all in the workplace or in leadership. And then when I started to pursue my design career, I took an internship in Nepal working for a small fair trade fashion startup. And it was while I was working with 20 girls who'd been rescued from human trafficking by a charitable organization that I became acutely aware that in many parts of the world, the opportunities for women were not what they were in my home. Back in the UK, I fell into online totally accidentally. There's been not a lot of plan in place to get me to where I am today. When my manager left and my buying role transitioned into being an online manager role, and I became completely fascinated and transfixed by digital marketing and the data behind our online platform and the customer proposition. So I don't think I really know what I wanted to do at this point either. So when opportunity knocked to move into a new role within the same company, but within brand influence, events, partnerships, and social media, I put my hand up for it despite having no real experience. So to be honest, I asked anyone and everyone I could for help to get me through that interview. And in the interview, I told them all the reasons why I could do the job, but I had really no concrete evidence as to how I could do the job. And they took a chance on me. And a few years later, I realized that I was now fully fledged marketing professional as opposed to being a designer. And arriving in Australia 9 years ago, and 4 companies later, I think I've covered all things marketing, digital, tech, and everything in between. And my role today, similar to Amanda, has transitioned me from a B2C role into predominantly a B2B role. About 70% of our consumers are small businesses and 30% are consumers. One and the same person, the same human. But it really combines my passion for supporting small independent businesses at a time when post-fire, flood and plague, they really need it the most. And also big transformative change with new technology and big brand evolution, all underpinned by our graphic design services.
Just some interesting stats on workplace gender equality published by the Australian Government Agency. While women make up 50% or thereabouts of the private sector workforce in Australia, only 32% of women hold key management positions, 28% hold director positions, 18% are CEOs, and 14% chair boards, while 70 to 80% of women drive consumer purchasing globally. So Caroline, we're here today to talk about women's achievements and some of the challenges women are finding in the workplace. And you know, from your history, you've seen the good and the bad of women. How have you challenged the status quo in your capacity as a leader in our industry, or as a female leader in our industry more specifically?
Yeah, so I think you had some really interesting stats there, Frank, on what is the status quo, which is that it's mostly men still in leadership positions. And my personal experience is that in Australia, 9 years, 4 companies, I haven't had a female manager and I haven't had a female CEO. Sometimes they've been one and the same, a manager and CEO, and sometimes not. But locally and internationally, I haven't had that experience of a female role model. I think there's 10 female CEOs in the ASX 200, which is 5%. And it's not looking like it's moving very much, because CFO and COO positions are also being held predominantly by men, and they are the line roles that feed the CEOs. So I guess for me, the big opportunity here for women who have a voice, who have reached leadership positions, is starting to be the change that we want to see and being really visible as female leaders so that we can be role models. Public speaking, talking about ourselves and our journeys. To be honest, I've always been really uncomfortable in the past about talking about my career path. I'd rather play it down. Maybe it's my bad English sense of humor, but I also know that it's what we actually need to talk about to make a change. And it's really important for women in our industry to be bolder and braver. I think that championing, supporting and mentoring women is super important as well. And one thing that I've tried to work on throughout my leadership positions is really challenging the bias in other leaders, in recruitment processes and in promotions, so that we have a much better measure of how we make sure that inclusion and leaving space for women is our top priority. I know that I'm always annoying predominantly the HR department, but I'm always asking for the stats on our diversity and inclusion. And I know that stats aren't the whole picture because they tell us what's happening right now, which stems from years of imbalance and not necessarily what the future is going to hold. But I think it's a really good place to start. And it helps us to realize the business what our shortfalls are, and also to put a plan in place. So more advocacy, if we don't ask, we don't get. And it's something we're definitely working on within Vistaprint. So globally, 30% of our key leadership positions and 40% of those with direct reports are now female. And it's really exciting to see the progress and the progression plans in place to make sure that we move these really strong female positions higher up the ladder. We still only have 24% in top exec positions. So there's some real time and effort to change this. We're definitely trying to get more and more feedback from all of our teams. We run employee resource groups on key diversity and inclusion issues. And we also run anonymous surveys so we can really litmus test how all our teams are feeling about our efforts, about trust, safety, and our organizational fit.
Right. Sounds like a lot of effort being put in by your side, Caroline. Great
A
work.
lot of people.
Great work. Amanda, you've worked in overseas, you've worked domestically for both domestic and international companies, and now you're in a company which is in the building industry, which is predominantly male dominated. But how have you challenged the status quo, or how are you challenging the status quo now in your capacity as a female leader?
I mean, to be honest, a lot of what Caroline said is exactly what I'm doing as well. It's really speaking at events or even little chats like fireside chats like this. I think it's really important, whether we're comfortable with it or not. It's very important to be visible as a female leader, to set that sort of, I guess, precedent for everyone else to sort of feel comfortable to stand up and talk. I mean, it's not always something that everyone's comfortable with, but when we're sort of speaking about and sharing our knowledge and expertise, we're setting an example for others to do the same. And I think the more visible female leaders are in the sort of industry and in the environment, the more we'll see it, and it'll become commonplace, right? In my industry, you would think, yes, it's very male dominated. It's a very safe assumption, but actually our leadership team is quite diverse, to be honest. We have a lot of female leaders, and it's really quite exciting. And there's a lot of plans in place similar to what Caroline was talking about in order to make that even more. And I've seen that in a lot of companies now, and it's really reassuring. I think there's still a lot of work in every industry in order to get females from probably grassroots, actually. Is where it probably needs to start from. Instead of just saying we're going to hire more females, it's actually looking at that grassroots part and how do we get them interested in the industry or the area at the very beginning of the process, instead of, say, 10 years down the track and saying, why don't we have enough females? Well, if we haven't trained them or haven't given them the opportunities, well, they're not going to be here, are they? So there's a lot of work to be done in that. But I think also as well within the industry, I think there's a lot, and I think we can look at the past year about flexibility, right? I think everyone's life has changed in the past year when we've all been at home and suddenly we've had homeschooling, or we've just had that ability to not be in the 2-hour commute to work every day. And suddenly our lives have changed. And it's been a tough year for everyone, but there is a silver lining to that in terms of we can work, we can be flexible, we can work from anywhere. And I think that's really bringing that into the workplace as well, and supporting everyone, male, female, anyone, in terms of that sort of flexibility. I think that's really important for everyone going forward. And as a female leader, championing that too, that school drop-offs and pickups are great. Do it. It's a work-life balance. This is really important to all of us from a mental point of view as well.
Yeah, what's been notable for me over the past few years is that more and more women are taking up that director's role and chairman or chairwoman role in companies. But in your opinion, Amanda, why is it important that more women move into these leadership roles in the near future?
Oh, I mean, for me, I sit down and go, it's so important that we're in these leadership roles because we're forging a path for the generation that's following us. If you look to the generation before us, they've had to forge a path for us to be able to even be leaders now. So for us to sit there and say we need more people in leadership in the near future, we get more women into leadership. So we take that from 20% to 50%. It's equal, it's half-half. The generation following us just go straight into those leadership roles. They don't have that challenge of saying, oh, we need to get that representation up. Their next challenge is being that sort of head of the ASX company and things like that. That's their challenge. But we've made that path just that little bit easier for them to get to. And I want to set that for my children so that they have that way forward as well. So it's really important that the near future we start to do that so that the next generation can reap the benefits of that.
Caroline, what's your thoughts on more women in leadership roles?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with everything that Amanda's just said. I just think that we need more female leaders as role models. So I think more women leading and participating in important hiring decisions is going to create this snowball effect, and the faster we bridge the gap. And I think role models, it shows from a lot of research that they have this amplified benefit for women because of the gender biases, the institutional barriers, and all the negative stereotypes that we've long had to contend with across a lot of different professional domains. So I think seeing is believing in this case. We just need to clear the path. So it's not a question of why can't I? It's just a question of when can I get to that leadership position. And I think from a business perspective, I mean, it's crazy that there isn't more being said about the fact that diversity is just better for business. There's so much research showing that gender equal businesses perform better. So more women in key leadership positions increases a company's market value. And it's really limiting just to be pulling from one set of experiences. So that's why all types of diversity and inclusion are really important. And it's just better for business. Just makes sense.
So we know each other from this very interesting e-commerce digital tech industry, and we are out there trying to support women. What more needs to change so that more women get into leadership positions within the e-commerce industry? Caroline, what's your thoughts?
Society, is that too big to say for us to change?
It's a big statement.
We can start there. I don't know. I think that, so one of the key issues that I see is that by the time that many of us, men and women, reach senior roles, a large number of us have children. And it's well documented that the choice to be a parent normally adversely affects women in the workplace more than men. Women also spend more time out of role on parental leave than men. And this is when this kind of pay gap, and also having less time to then commit to a full-time role after this point. So when all of the leadership positions that we create are 38 hours plus per week, and we expect everyone to work full-time hours in very confined required hours, then we're missing out on this wealth of experience, diversity, and company success, because we're just excluding a proportion of our female workforce from applying. So I guess as an industry, we can start to advocate for change, for flexibility, for better opportunities for all, to be an employer of choice for women, and consider how our policies as an organisation can support and attract women. And then I'll say it again, just again, trying to remove the bias with clear criteria for hiring, making sure that we have diverse panels. We need to make sure that we are offering women the chance to speak to other women during the hiring process, so they also know if this is a company that they want to join. So we need to think with our feet as well and join companies that really support women to be in and return back to the workplace.
So Amanda, what's your thoughts about some of the changes that need to happen within this dynamic e-commerce retail industry that we work in?
Well, I absolutely agree with Caroline and everything she said just then. I mean, I'm lucky enough now to be working at Laminex now, which is a work from anywhere place. So when I was hired, it was during COVID, and forever it is work from anywhere. So having gone through hiring and onboarding another 4 or 5 team members during this time as well, the people you get applying are very different in terms of you have a lot of females for a start, and then also males as well. And it's just that question of, are you sure I'm okay to go pick up my kids at 2 o'clock? So go for it. Like, go there, pick them up, work from home. That flexibility, it gives everyone just this whole new perspective on work and things like that. And it's not just females, but it's also males. By supporting the male, you're also supporting their partner, who might not be able to do that. So it's actually that sort of paying it forward effect, which I think is so important as an industry, that we're looking at these sort of options. And honestly, the past year is sort of what's brought a lot of this about, because it's proved that it's actually possible to work from anywhere and get the results. But also as an industry, I think we really do need to look to the representation of females. Things like conferences. I mean, I think if you look at the last couple of years, you would see that there's 70% male, and I'm being generous, there's probably more. But it's very hard to get females to speak at those conferences. So more representation of females in conferences from things like that. Also, when we're within a business actively looking to develop and support females, what do they need? How can we help them? How do we give them more exposure to the wider business? How do we set them up to be the next leaders instead of those people who are happy to sort of move and travel and do all these different things? We need to realize that not everyone can do that, but that doesn't mean that their abilities and expertise are less than others. And then, as I spoke to before, starting at grassroots, the industry has such an opportunity to do scholarships, to give internships and really get people at grassroots and get them into businesses and open up and expose them to a new pathway that maybe they wouldn't have even thought of beforehand without that sort of, I don't know, bit of a jump start to get into the industry. So we have that opportunity to do it. We should be trying to do it as much as possible and really get more females into the fold.
So one of the thoughts I had, Amanda, and you touched on it, was the world has gone through some interesting times over the past 12 months, thanks to our friend called COVID. Has that changed anything for women, for better or worse?
Oh, for me, absolutely. Honestly, there's every job I've been in, I've sort of been this advocate. Could I please just work one day from home? I just want one day where I can pick my kids up from school, or one day where I can do the washing in between meetings and not feel guilty. So this whole past year where everyone's been forced to work from home has just been a bit of a godsend in terms of we've proven we can all work from home. We can actually be more productive. We can get just as much work done, if not more, but still also have a work-life balance. So for me, it's been an absolute game changer. Like, my commute to the office is literally 1 minute from downstairs getting my coffee to my desk, whereas it would have been hours beforehand on public transport, and the stress that brings about mentally as well. It just really plays havoc with you. So for me, it's been amazing for the past year. And then also, I think from that ongoing perspective, where it's not such a big barrier to say, I want to work from home, which would have been a stop for a lot of jobs for me in terms of applying for them. If it was like, no, you need to be in the office 5 days a week, and yes, it's 2 hours away, but that's not my problem, well, that would have stopped me taking that job. Whereas options like this, where you can work from home, it's not a barrier anymore. Any jobs I can take, so it's great.
Fantastic. So Caroline, Amanda's comments there was namely around being a mother. If we think about COVID and your sort of position, has it been for the better or for worse for women like yourself?
I think it's been mixed. So I think that there's, we're social beings. So I think that removing us from an office environment for some people, if they live on their own or they live a long way from family, can be quite isolating. So I think there is an impact for individuals within COVID that we haven't really identified fully yet from a mental health capacity. I'm very fortunate that I started my role during COVID, and I have had opportunities in Sydney to meet my team within coffee shops and collaboration spaces. And we've just opened our new collaboration space where we'll be in the office. Sorry, not office, because it's a collaboration space and I'm not allowed to call it an office. We'll be in there 2 days a week, so that we're able to have that interaction, and particularly when we're working in creative spaces within marketing, having that collaboration and being able to build on each other's ideas. I've really struggled with some of our brainstorming and whiteboarding using the digital tools, as fabulous as they are, and constantly looking at a computer screen. I've also struggled in parts with some of the work-life balance. There is a lot of meetings that I need to attend early mornings and late evenings with European and North American counterparts. And I've needed to learn how to structure my day differently so that I take breaks in the middle of the day and I don't miss out on my exercise and my social time because I'm stretching my work day, because that 1 minute that Amanda speaks of from her kitchen to her workspace is exactly the same for me. And it's too easy just to spend too long sat at a desk. So I think the opportunity to then go to a Pilates class in the middle of the day has been wonderful, provided that I have the confidence to say to my employer and my team, this is what I'm doing because I'm going to be on a call at 7 o'clock tonight. And when you're new to a role, it's quite difficult, I think, to firstly get that inner confidence to say that that's okay. So I've seen really positive benefits that I haven't needed to commute, I haven't been in my car all day, and the opportunity to be able to work more flexibly. But I think there are a lot of things that we need to provide as organisations to make sure that we don't burn out our teams and that workload doesn't become too much.
So on International Women's Day, Caroline, what's the most important message you want to send out to young women thinking about their careers?
Oh, do I only have to do one? I feel like there's so many. I think firstly, nurture your self-awareness. So taking time to work out who you are, what you want, and how those things fit into your life. And that's professional and personal. I think working from home with Zoom calls and technology has been wonderful, but there's no clean work-life separation anymore. It really is a balancing act between the two, and they have become one. I think being confident. So seek out strong women as leaders, as mentors, and as friends, and create a conversation with them. Because I know for me personally, I need them to help me quieten the inner chatter, the imposter syndrome. So when that negative socialized self-talk comes up and you're not able to quash it down on your own, speaking to other strong women, finding that mentor or coach, and asking them to help you shut down the inner critic until you build up that confidence yourself, I think is really important. I wish I'd done that much sooner. I know that I needed to network and identify myself to leaders in my organization much earlier than I did. I didn't do it for a really long time, and I wish I'd had the confidence to do it much sooner. I still hate public speaking, and it may never get any better, but at least I know now that it doesn't kill me, and what doesn't kill me makes me stronger. And then I think it's really interesting that generally we gear these conversations towards women. And I would just like to firstly applaud any man who's been brave enough to click on this content, which I'm guessing is going to be entitled something around International Women's Day. So for any man who's been brave enough to watch this, I applaud you. We have exceptional men who are championing diversity and equality, and we need more of them, because more change agents is faster change.
As always, Caroline, lots of great thoughts and messages. Amanda, what's the key message you'd like to send out to young women as they think about their careers?
For me, it's work out what you love doing. So it's kind of a similar message. What are you passionate about? And really do that, because I think you can't underestimate, if you're passionate about something, it's going to get you through a lot of adversity. Like if you really love what you're doing, it can get you through any sort of tough times. But more importantly, be authentic and true to yourself. What are your ethics and your morals? And that's really important, because no matter what's going on around you, you need to know yourself, to exactly what Caroline said. It's really important. And I think overall, I think you need to have pride in yourself and what you're doing. Always try your best and always do your best, because you've got to impress yourself first and foremost. And if you're proud of what you're doing, that shows. If you're not proud of what you've done and your achievements, then you can't really expect anyone else to be proud of it either. So it starts from you first, and working out what's best for you.
Thanks, Amanda. That's some very encouraging messages to the people, the young ladies listening to this session. With that in mind, I'd like to personally thank you both for your time, for your thoughts and messages, and have a great International Women's Day.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Frank.
Frank.